So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call up the First Nations Fire Department panel. First off, I'd like to call up Ashley Russell Taylor, Six Nations Fire and Emergency Management. As a Fire Chief and Emergency Management Coordinator of Six Nations of the Grand River, Ashley expresses his passion and ambition for the disaster and emergency services through development and coordination of leadership and capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Russell Taylor. And also, from Moose Cree Fire Department, Tim Stone. Tim has been with Moose Cree Fire Department for 14 years, with nearly 4 years in a full-time role. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tim Stone, please. Come on up. Okay, so I'm going to ask them a series of questions, really tough, hard ones, okay? All right. So I'm going to... Oh, my chair. You pass me a chair. Oh, sorry. Okay, no, yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna. This is our last panel of the day. So let's. Hello. There we go. I'm gonna go on this side. Okay. Right here. Perfect. Don't worry, I'm not. So again, we're gonna start off with Tim, and then Ashley. You're gonna go right after Tim. Okay. So the first question is, how do you acquire funding for full-time positions? Oh, you got it.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, so we get it from our funding from ISC and then with Mushkagwak and District School Board, the government, provincial, and we have the reserve, Moose Cree. So that's where we get our funding from the fire department.
Thank you very much. And Ashley, same question.
Yeah, we're fortunately and unfortunately in a slightly different situation, and my answer is ultimately we don't. And that's what I'm going to say. As the largest First Nation community in the country, we are one of only a few full-time fire services. All of our staff are paid staff, and unfortunately that funding falls under the standard formula-based funding that all First Nations would receive for fire protection, even though we have a community potentially of 22,000 members. So it's a very different situation where we get that base funding, and the rest of the funding comes from the nation itself. So ultimately, we're raising the money from within to pay for our service.
I just want to ask everybody out there: are you guys familiar where Moose Cree is? Well, you guys just put up your hand if you're familiar where Moose Cree is, okay? And do you know where, and Ashley? Six Nations, are you guys familiar with Six Nations? Okay, now you notice that they're opposites. One's in the north, very far north, and one's in the very south. So I just wanted to clarify that. The next question is, when we receive retired fire suppression equipment, should we use it?
Well, no, because we wouldn't want something retired when we get it out of the box, right? So, but in some places, if we do need to use something and it works, so I would still use it. But yeah, retired suppression equipment, no.
Thank you for that. Okay, Ashley?
Yeah, and I agree once again, is absolutely not. The expectation or the allowance to use that equipment in any other municipality or any other area would absolutely be no, as per NFPA guidelines. So why should any First Nation have to settle to do the same thing? So to meet standards, let alone just create the opportunity and identify the need to utilize that used equipment, I think that it's important that we all push to ensure that it meets NFPA standards and is not exceeding its service lifespan.
Thank you.
Got a question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In regards to your training and certification, if you wouldn't mind if you guys just talk about the frequency of your training, what it is a basic trainer someone needs to do in order to step on your fire truck, and and where it is that you provide that training. Do you provide that training within, and whatnot?
Yeah, we'll go with Tim first, or Ashley. Yeah.
It's over to me for this one. So in terms, as I said, we are slightly unique. I think it is important to mention, even though I work in Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, I live in Saugeen First Nation or Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory, and I'm also a member of the Volunteer Fire Service there as both a captain and training officer. And I think it's important to say that I live, work, and operate in two very, very different worlds when it comes to fire services. And that's something that I think has been of great benefit to me because I've seen the conditions that, and currently work in, the same conditions that many of you work in terms of fire services and response. So in terms of the training within my full-time service as a fire chief there, none of our firefighters or first responders are able to ultimately step within a hot zone or within onto the fire grounds until they have a minimum standard of education and training, which is accredited from our stance. So in order to be on our fire service as a firefighter, we provide and require NFPA 1001 firefighter level 1 and firefighter level 2, as well as a hazmat was 472, is now 1072, I believe, as well as some other smaller stuff, emergency medical first response or a medical first responder medical certification ultimately. So that is what we preach, because as I mentioned before, is the expectation of a municipality anywhere else, so why wouldn't we hold ourselves to that same standard? So that's what we do, and my volunteer service that I work within has tried its best to do the same. Are we still utilizing equipment that is out of service and should not be used? Yes, in my other service. In my other service. Are we all certified firefighters in my other service? No. But we push to ensure that opportunity. I will also say I'm also an executive board member with the Ontario Native Firefighter Society, and that's my little plug for them, because we do need to breathe some more life into it with individuals within this room and their role in being able to provide that training opportunity to every other First Nation fire service or member that's interested in moving that forward. So we provide through the Ontario Native Firefighter Society 1001 level 1 and 2, as well as the hazmat training opportunity to all First Nations on a regular basis. And generally, COVID slowed us down, but usually at least 1 or 2 intakes per year to provide that opportunity. So that's the frequency that happens, but if anyone was able to put together an opportunity or a class or a number of people that were willing to do so, I'd be happy to assist with that process, as we do have roughly 35 certified NFPA 1041 fire instructors with years of experience to be able to provide that training to other First Nation individuals and those looking to move their careers forward.
Tim, would you like to add anything, or?
Yeah, up north, as you can see, down south, we're way different. Up north, we don't have to have anything, as they come and join, and then we train them as we go, and then courses will come along, and we could send them to the course. As myself, I was a volunteer, and then I came down to Six Nations, and they gave me my firefighter 1 and 2, where I did my training, so and then also doing that with the volunteers back home up north. So we all do the training and catch up and everything. So,
if I could just make a quick comment to that, and I mean, I'd just like to say and identify for, there's a couple members that have gone through our programs and come down to Six Nations. Tim and I would have never met if it wasn't for that, and I ended up assisting as an instructor in his program as well, and a part of his program. So it's one of those things where we're seeing the results of those seeds that we planted. I don't know, how long ago was that now? About 4 years ago now, and we're starting to see that. There's another EM member that came through here as well, who's now a champion in his community, that all came from those training programs. So it's great and an honor to be able to meet people like Tim.
That's awesome. Actually, the next question that we had was, what courses do you require for firefighters? But you've already answered it. I'm going to turn this question to a hypothetical, okay? So this next question, let's say, for instance, in your home communities, Six Nations and Moose Cree, and I want to get both of your thoughts on this one. Let's say, for instance, there is a house fire that's happening, all right? And you're short staffed or whatever. You get to the situation, and there's volunteers that are just like random volunteers, Like for instance, me, I want to come and help. Now, let's say for instance I get injured or anything or something happens. What happens? Like, is there liability issues? Is there something that, you know what I mean? Like if I want to help you put up the fire, but something happens to me, what happens? Or do you guys say, no, get away, stand back?
Well, there was a couple times where somebody wanted to help, but we just let them, I did get them to just help pull the hose and that's it, but I didn't let them get any close to the vehicles, and we had the crowd control as the naps to keep everybody away so the volunteer firefighters could come in and do what we got to do. And yeah, that's about it.
That's actually a great question. It's a tough one because it puts us in a situation where, you know, I've been in only one situation where I've had a number of public wanting, and we're literally having to take up the time to try and stop the public from ultimately going into a hazardous environment. So the short answer is unfortunately no. We can't let anyone do that. And you know, a firefighter or within the fire service, a lot of times will say, risk a lot to save a lot, risk a little to save a little. So depending on you know, the situation, we try our best not to put anyone at risk that shouldn't be at risk.
I remember an incident in Fort Albany. There was a house on fire, and it was three houses away from Northern Store. And I remember driving up to going to the store, and all of a sudden, smoke was coming out of the glass or out of the windows. I stopped, and a few others stopped, and we went running towards the house, thinking that there was people in there. And then we had NAPS show up, and then the volunteer firefighters came, and they pushed us all to the side. They're saying, no, you got to go, let us handle it. So I understand. So yeah. The fourth question I would like to ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes. Sorry, I was focused over here, but yes, your question.
You were really looking at them. The question I have is with regards for ONFIS. So you were talking about ONFIS and the training. So is that community-based training, or are you still conducting the fire academy out of your department down in Six Nations?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm working this year, and I've been working with our funders and with different groups myself to look at the opportunity to bring that to communities to an extent. I would love to say it could all be done in community, but the fact of the matter is, to get the level that's needed to meet NFPA standards, it's very difficult to do so. We've been able now to get the program down to a very, let's call it a palatable time frame. What originally may have been 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks to get it done to the right level has now been down with online training and prep and kind of hybrid training down to roughly around 4 weeks of training. So, and that's all hands-on. So we're working on getting it to the communities, but obviously we probably, if I was to just, don't quote me on this, ultimately, if we could get down to 1 week in our community, and that's where we're utilizing our burn tower and all of the props and stuff that you just wouldn't be able to access in a community, the rest could be done in community, and we're working on that plan. But as it sits right now, just for the ease of access and safety, we're still being run within the community at our Training Center for Excellence. So,
and also with regards to the instructors that you have, is the instructors from the First Nations?
I am extremely happy to say that all of our instructors are from a First Nation.
Awesome.
They are from the First Nation. They are within the First Nation, serving First Nations. And the only thing that we have to go outside of that for, and this is something that for any of you, many of you maybe heard me chat in different rooms this week, is I am a very strong proponent of training and accredited training. It has to be accredited and certified training. Anyone that comes through our academies will either be IFSAC or Pro Board certified. Pro Board is generally what we utilize the most because it's the easiest form of accreditation to maintain. And unfortunately, that accreditation as it sits today is held by a group that's non-Indigenous. But the but side of that is the people that are part of that, a couple of them being our employees within our First Nation Fire Service in our community. That's our connection over the years. But I am happy to say that we are very close to obtaining an actual First Nation accreditation in order to have it coming from the First Nation 2 other First Nations from an accredited service.
That's huge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you, guys. And thank you again for that question. If anybody else does have a question, just tap on the mic there, because I'm usually going back and forth here, okay? So my question here, you guys, now each of you have a career in firefighting, right? Tim, how long have you been?
I've been a volunteer for about 13 years, 14, and then I've been full-time now about 4 years.
Oh, wow, perfect. And Ashley, yourself?
Yeah, I've got about 11 years total, a little bit broken up, but the last 6 to 7 years has been full-time, and nursing prior to that, so it's just kind of all been the same.
So within your careers, which is very successful, can you tell me a high and a low based on your career? Like, tell us a high story and a low story that if you can, based on your career, like a high point and a low point, something that was good and something that was bad, basically, just kind of thing like that. What was a high point and something in a kind of a low? We'll start off the low first, and then we can end it off with a high.
You know, I could joke a little bit and say the low point was becoming a fire chief, because then you get to deal with the extremely difficult problems. But that's too easy to give away. I think, you know, for myself, I really live in between a high and a low on a day-to-day basis, because I live and work and serve the community that I live in, my home community and territory, under conditions that would not be acceptable in a third world country. And then I go down to my employment, who happens to be another First Nation, where we have elite firefighters with an extremely high level of access to things. So I mean, really the low point is to go, I deal with struggles and challenges in a well-serviced community from a fire protection standpoint, and I have shortfalls and challenges there, and I go, oh my gosh, like, we can't handle this. And then I go back to my home community, and how do you relate? How do you relate? Like, they just do not relate. The struggles are just so real. And I think that's the lowest point, is that every community, let alone First Nation or not, should have fire protection, should know that somebody's coming in those situations. And the sad reality is, and that's what you live with every day, is that we don't.
Thank you, Ashley.
I think my high point is, yes, going up the ladder and doing my flight for the springtime, as I do post and let everybody know when breakup is coming, how high the water is coming, and so everyone gets to know what's coming, so they get ready just in case if there is of an evacuation gonna have to happen. My low would probably have to be about the preparedness and the prevention, even though we do send it out and everything, but sometimes things happen, an accident happens with the fire and like a house or something, and yeah, about the prevention and getting everything out there, so to the community.
I guess I didn't really give a high point, so I'll give a high point. I think, you know, a high point for me is seeing the progression, coming to events like this and seeing the conversation start and conversation happen, to see that changes are actually taking place and that things are actually moving forward. I think that's a high point for me on multiple levels. And then, of course, one of the highest points for me is obviously getting to meet champions like Tim and members from all over the place in many different First Nation communities as they progress in their journey in protecting their community. So that's probably the highest point for me.
Awesome. Next question for both of you. Do you have mutual air agreements with any municipalities or any other First Nations?
Mutual air or mutual aid?
Mutual air.
Mutual air?
Yeah, mutual air.
Aid.
Oh, is it a typo? Yeah. Mutual aid. Sorry. There we go. That's a typo.
Yeah,
mutual aid agreements. There you go.
Like back home, it's a lot different as of Six Nations, because we live on an island, and Moosonee is the closest place, so we don't have anything written. We just verbal. So if anything happens, yeah, we have to take a boat over, or we have to drive over the ice road, or yeah. So it's not written. We just have a verbal, so we help out each other.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like I really could not imagine what that's got to be like. Yes, we do have mutual aid agreements. If I was to say that one of the key proponents and most important parts of developing your fire service is developing those relationships. And believe it or not, it's not a matter of MOUs and contracts and all that other stuff to make stuff happen. Whether or not any other fire service members would want me to say this, especially at the chief officer level. They're like-minded people. They're willing to help, and they'll do what it takes to help. So just create that relationship, open that door, and those relationships will come. And we rely on even though our fire service, we rely on our mutual aid. I would say at least every week we have mutual aid coming to our support one way or another, and we deal with 3 different municipalities that are on our territory borders to come and assist us depending on the location.
Thank you for that. Here we go. No, go for it.
Sorry, this question's for Tim. Are your volunteer firefighters on reserve paid? Because some in small municipalities are.
We have like a point system. So like every time we get a call or when there's training, and then per hour, so we go by the points.
But so it's very small, but it
Yeah.
does exist.
Yeah, it's
okay.
very,
Yeah, and just to that as well, I mean, we are a composite department, so we do rely on our volunteers as well. So we utilize the same system that they do. So think of it as it's a per diem type situation for responding and being on call.
Is it the exact same as small municipal fire departments? No, it's different. Almost close.
It depends on the municipal department, but the premise is the same. Whether it's you're paid hourly, whether you're paid anything, or maybe you're not paid at all. Municipalities deal with that too. So yeah, they are very similar, and in many cases.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, here's our next question. Where did the funding come from for your infrastructure, such as fire halls or heated buildings to house your trucks?
Back home, we have the Emergency Response Preparedness Building, the EPR. So we have the NAPS there, the police, the ambulance, and the fire department. So the ISC, government, the NAPS, and we all pitched in for the building, so we're all in one area.
So from our standpoint, I mean, I guess I'll kind of break it down into two resources ultimately. Indigenous Services Canada, for a number of years, has provided us with the initial infrastructure. I believe it's been provided through the FNERA program, or First Nations Infrastructure Planning portion. I would leave that to an ISC person to discuss a little further, but that's where a lot of the infrastructure came from to start off with. But much like other First Nation communities, we have 5 stations, and 4 of them, or I guess 3 of them, came through that process of funding, and were ultimately should probably be condemned. They are not meeting a standard by any means. And our main Station 1 headquarters, many people have seen it, beautiful station, that was funded by the businesses within our community. All 100% of the funds that put that building in our community came from the community as well. In terms of trucks, a good portion of them came from Indigenous Services Canada over the years, and we've been able to, based on our need, be able to replace them as they exceed their service lifespan. But some of that funding also came from within the community.
Thank you. Let's go to the...
So I think it's amazing that you guys are able to promote and get people to come onto the departments, whether it's paid or volunteer. What would you like to see, or what do you currently have in place for the longevity of those members, whether it's PTSD or dealing with the fact that they are working within smaller communities where their patients or victims could be family, friends, people that you know very close. So what would you like to see, or what do you currently have in place to deal with issues like that?
I look at him like, oh, you go first. So great question, and I really applaud you for asking that question, even having that consideration, because a lot of people do not consider that. I'm a very strong supporter of mental wellness and ensuring that those resources are not only available to those first responders, but also related or provided to those in the community who are affected by whatever situations take place. I see I've got Marco and Rosie on the right-hand side, and one of them can hit me from when they see me next time. But critical incident stress management, or CISM training, is something that I feel is an extremely beneficial avenue to go, and amazingly funded under EMAP. So make sure that you guys look into that. And what that is ultimately not only the ability to identify challenges and identify those that are being affected, but they're also providing you with the education and the steps to be able to step in and not only identify, but also provide assistance to get help in the ways necessary. So that's been something that we've been really pushing on. Peer networks or CISM peer groups that are available throughout the province are a huge resource as well. But I think you would be doing a disservice by not identifying the importance of ensuring that the First Nations lens is first and foremost and considered in that process, because it's really easy to say that critical incident stress management is extremely important and I got a certificate, but there's a heck of a lot more to it, and that cultural value and awareness is much more important than getting that certificate. But please do reach out to these guys to see if there's options for that, and create that network for your responders.
Yeah, back home we also have the healing center and also counselors. So it's not just for the firefighters. Also, it's also for the community. So, and we also all stick together and we try to help each other out and get through it and talk.
And if I could just once again just note, and again, I'm probably repeating myself in the relationships that are built through training opportunities and within fire, and I mean many other services are the same way. I mean, we still have messenger groups from years ago for those groups that came through as you know, doing training, and a lot of us still communicate with one another in those times of need and support. And you know, that's just something that I think every training should have built into it, is that camaraderie and that reflection on, hey, these are your peers too, so look to them for support.
Awesome. So my next question here, again, we're going to do another question like that. Okay, so what we're going to do, so based on where you work, each fire department, okay, and let's pretend the crowd here has unlimited funds. What are 3 things you would you want or upgrade in terms of your tools you have, whatever? What are 3 things that each of yours? What are 3 things you would want to either to get or to upgrade? Tough question, eh?
I talk a lot, and this one's got me a little bit. I think yes, give that applause. Recruitment and retention. Great answer. Great answer. No, absolutely. And I'm just trying to think of that because, you know, having your council's leaders, champions, identify the importance and the need of having individuals and groups like this in your community would probably be first and foremost, and creating an interest in maintaining that level of protection and safety in the community would probably be number 1 for me. And maybe that doesn't include money at all. That's really just a when I use the word culture, that's a culture of the fire service, or a culture of you know, being a responder. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And you know, I think that would be first and foremost. I think if you have an existing fire service, is just identifying where you are, assessing what you have, and establishing where you want to go, and start with that. Because, you know, I could use an example of a ladder truck. Everyone wants a cool ladder truck. That's the most fun to play with ever. Well, how many of your communities have anything over 2 stories? Really, right? So identifying the needs, identifying what you want to go and where you want to go. But really, I'm skirting around the fact that I don't have an answer besides recruitment and retention.
All right, Tim.
Well, that was a tough one, but Ashley did say it pretty well. Yeah.
Give us an out and maybe rephrase it.
Well, like I'm just saying, like let's throw it around. Okay, your program has unlimited funding. What would you want or upgrade? What are the top three things you would want or upgrade?
Can I give you
I know. Oh, sorry.
Chief, please.
I think one of the things, and I wanted to ask, and I missed the opportunity to, but I think for probably every First Nation fire department in Ontario and in Canada, but especially in Ontario, we have the Ontario Native Firefighter Society, as the chief had mentioned. I'd like to see that accredited, funded, that they have full-time instructors that'll travel through all the First Nations and making sure that they're bringing up the level of training to where it's supposed to be for each fire department. Because our fire departments play a critical role. We're just not there when the fires happen. We're there when community crises happen, emergencies. Doesn't matter what size it is. We're also the ones that are the medics. We run out for all of the first response, all types of medical emergencies and stuff like that. So that's what I'd really, if I was asked that question as a fire chief, that's what I would want. I would like to see that, so that each and every community has that level of training that they need in order to provide the service for their community, and hopefully cut down on the deaths that we suffer in our communities, far north and equal to everybody, like, you know what I mean, so that the far north, once they put in that request to get training, that they'd be able to get it, you know, at the same level as our brother here from the south.
If I can ask, Chief, thank you so much. Let's please give Chief a round of applause, because I'm going to say, and this is a bold statement for me, especially in a room of individuals, my commitment to my role as a member of the Ontario Native Firefighter Society is to do exactly that. That is my goal, and I don't have as much pull as I would like to, and I'm going to utilize every piece of privilege that I have to get there. But that is absolutely something that needs to happen, and hopefully those in the room who can potentially contribute to that in any way, shape, or form, please make that a voice and give that a voice moving forward. Is we have a group that is to represent fire within our province for First Nations communities. Utilize, leverage, and empower that group to be able to provide those services to every single community. And Six Nations shouldn't be, oh wow, look at their fire service. We should be able to look at the entire province and say every single First Nations has the equivalent or better fire service. So thank you, Chief. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, like what he said about the training, we would like to get more training and everything for all our firefighters, and then also with the water treatment plants, as they only have so much they can hold, and then when we fill up our water trucks, they have to turn down the water very low for everybody on the community, or sometimes they shut it down for a certain amount of time. So yeah, water treatment, training for all the firefighters, and some of the gear for search and rescues and everything, like, yeah.
You know, when all of us here, when we were younger, we were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, some of the answers are doctors, nurses, teachers, firefighter, policemen, right? I'm going to ask you a personal question, okay? What inspired both of you to go down that path of being a firefighter, where you are today? Could be a who inspired you? or when? So we're going to quickly go with that one because we do have a couple of minutes.
Well, for me, I always enjoyed helping people, and I was always there, and I was the go-to guy. So within my family, everybody would come to me, and then even friends, family friends would come to me, and I also just grew up like helping people in every way I can, and this is where I am now today.
Yeah, I've been told not to say this in my resume, or not, sorry, in my resume, in any sort of application times, but you know, I've always wanted to be a firefighter. When I became a firefighter, my mom produced some drawings from when I was 3 years old. All I wanted to do was be a firefighter, so for me, it was a dream come true. But the fact of the matter is, I thought I'd missed my chance. During SARS, when I applied to Toronto, they canceled a recruitment year, and at that time, if you were over the age of 19 or 20, they didn't want you. And I thought I'd lost my chance. Down the road, I have 3 amazing Ojibwe children and beautiful Ojibwe wife, and I'm living back in a First Nation community. And the only way that I felt that I could provide my input to the community around me was to join the fire service. And yeah, that's how I got to where I am today, and I'm very privileged and very honored to be a part of that now. So yeah.
You know, guys, I really want to applaud you guys, because you guys, when the situation arises, you like somebody said it before, you two run towards that's happening. Me, I'd probably run away. But I really want to applaud you guys. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Ashley and Tim, please. And also, I also want to applaud everybody that's here that's part of the emergency planning for your community, for your organization. I really want to say thank you to you guys too, because you guys deserve that as well. You know, you guys plan it, you coordinate, you put everything in place for us to be safe, or your community members to be safe. So again, give yourself a nice round of applause too as well. Now we do have a couple of minutes, and I'm going to end it off with these questions. Okay, Ashley and Tim, I asked this question earlier to the earlier panel. Okay, what is your favorite movie?
Backdraft.
Backdraft. Oh, he had to pull out the firefighter movie. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
I'm not going to name one of the other 3 awesome firefighter movies. I'm going to pull the heritage card for a second. Braveheart.
Braveheart? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to pull that card.
Okay. Again, I asked this other question. What is your go-to karaoke song? Something that you would sing, like, and you're automatically going to win. So which ones is it?
Tequila.
That's like 6 words in the song. There you go. Okay, thank you. Tim? Or Ashley, sorry?
What are we singing? No, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. For the fun of it all, how about something, I don't know, the Grease song, the Grease Megamix song, because everyone knows that.
Summer Nights?
So, well, it's a combination, but it is Summer Nights, yes.
Oh, okay.
Summer Nights, good one, good one.
Okay, my last question, we're going to end it off with this one, okay? Before I ask that question, everybody, please don't forget to fill out the surveys. There's a couple of you, I know there's a couple of you that are going to be flying out today, so we would love to have everybody's opinion on the surveys. Right after this, we are going to take a little break, come back. We're going to do the closing ceremonies with the closing prayer, the closing, the traveling song from Bear Creek. And I love everybody here. Love everybody's participation. This is amazing. Last question, guys. Again, which would you rather have? Would you rather have unlimited money for personally, or would you want to know the truth and secrets of the universe and Earth in its entirety? What would you rather have?
Oh, gosh.
I would have to go with the money because you can still learn.
I'm going to go with the money because I don't want to know all of that. I honestly don't. I don't. That's too much of a burden. The money's easy to get rid of.
You know what, personally, I know personally for myself, I would choose the secrets and truth. I would want to know about Area 51 and you know what, and everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, give your hands, give your applaud. Let's Tim and Ashley, please, firefighters, and we'd like to present them with a gift. So come on over here, guys.